Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Viewers of Echo from Touba, thank you for following our programs happening on Lamphal TV every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. And also a rerun on Sunday night at 11:30. But first, we're wishing long life to our Khalif, Sheikh Muntakha. May Allah help him on his projects, and also heading to a Mughal. May Allah help him with all the enterprises he's having right now. Talking about Mughal, we're going to have a series of lectures because of the pandemic. Of course, we're going to have guests on shows, but we also choose to bring over some interesting lectures. Talking about lectures, if it is about the Mughal of Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba, of course, we're going to bring a lecture to talk about the icon, our Sheikh Al Khadim, from a young mind from New York City, Sheikh Bashir Fall of Nailul Maram Center in New York. He's going to introduce Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba, inshallah. We're going to let you listen to the lecture, inshallah.
عونك يا معين وبك نستعين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم اللهم افتح علينا رحمتك وانشر علينا بركتك. Brothers and sisters, today this speech will be done in English, inshallah, because Ustaz actually asked me to do a program about a figure that is really influential in our lives, and he's maybe one of the most influential people in the world, especially in West Africa. And his day of remembrance, I can say, is around the corner. That's why Ustaz asked me to do some, lectures about him. And his name is Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba. Sheikh Ahmed Bamba. And just like we did in the Seerah, before we talk about him as a person, we will just give a brief historical contextualization, because to know Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba and to know his work and his perspective about life, we must know in what environment he grew up in the environment he grew up in, and what was going around at the time he was growing up. So Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba, his real name is Ahmed. And there are many people who wrote about his biography early on in their lives. One of them is Muhammad Lamin Job ad-Dagani. He's a man, a scholar from Dagana, and he was from the disciples of Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba. And he is maybe the first person to write the biography of Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba. And also Muhammad Bashir Mbake, he's a son, one of the sons of Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba. He also wrote a book, the biography of Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba. So those two, and there are also many other books that are written about Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba, but those two are the most known and the earliest record of Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba's life. And they actually differ in the genealogy of Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba, because Muhammad Lamin Job Dagana says that his name is Ahmed ibn Muhammad ibn Habibullah ibn Muhammad al-Kabir ibn Habibullah al-Awwal ibn Muhammad al-Khayr. That's how he said the genealogy of Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba. And Muhammad al-Bashir, who is a son of Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba, he said that he's Ahmed ibn Muhammad ibn Habibullah ibn Muhammad al-Khayr. So he skipped Habibullah al-Awwal. And him, Ahmed, is his name. Ibn Muhammad is his father, and he's more known as Mamur Antasali. Ibn Habib Ahmad ibn Muhammad, and Muhammad is more known as Mamoranta Sali ibn Habibullah, and Habibullah is Mambala Aisha. And Habibullah, he is the son of Muhammad, according to Muhammad Lamin Jabdagana, Muhammad al-Kadir. But according to Muhammad al-Bashir, he said Muhammad al-Khair. And I don't know whether people realize that difference, but I saw that difference in those two narrations. So whether we call him Muhammad al-Khair or Muhammad al-Kabir, he was well known as Mam Mahram. He was more known as Mam Mahram. And so the history of Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba really starts with that man, Mam Mahram, because he is the one whom the scholars of Sirah means biography, the scholars of Sirah, especially Muhammad al-Bashir, they trace back the history of the Mbacke family to him, to Mam Mahram. So the Mbacke family, they are originally from Futa. You guys know Futa, right? Futa. So Mam Mahram, he is the one who migrated from Futa and came to Jolof and built a city in Jolof, and there all his sons were living in Futa over there. And after him, after Mam Mahram, there were Habibullah, which is Mambala Aisha, and then Mamoranta Sali, and then Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba. So what happened was that when Mam Mahram went to Jolof, and Mam Mahram had somebody whom he went to school with, he went to Dar with him, and his name was Muhammad Lamin Sar. And Muhammad Lamin Sar was a very eminent scholar, and once there were a propaganda that some of the Muslims who were living in Futa, they wanted to attack the Jolof states, the Wolof states, and the Wolof states at that time, they were not Muslims. There were scholars over there, but they were not Muslims. So because the people who were living in Futa, they said to themselves that these people are not Muslims and they are worshipping, they are idol worshippers. So we must do jihad with them and fight them. So when that went on, Muhammad Lamin Sar was one of the people who he was said to be among the people who were, preparing to attack the Wolof states. So that's why one of the kings. What? Oh, in the 17th century. Early on in the 17th century. So what I was saying, there was a king in Jolof, the Jolof state, and his name was Amaringone Sobel. No, Amaringone Ndela. His name was Amaringone Ndela. And when that was going on, he sent somebody to go and kill Muhammad Lamin Sar, and he went and did that. And when he did that, he was given a really great position with the king. So when Mam Mahram heard about that story, many scholars at his time, they called him and told him that we must fight with these kings because they killed one of our comrades. So he told them that he will not do that because that's not called jihad, because according to them that's jihad, but to him that's not jihad, that's hamiyya, because somebody just killed somebody that you love and you want to fight for him. That's not jihad, that's actually hamiyya. So he didn't want to participate in that, and after that he traveled to Jolof. And when he was traveling, people were telling him that maybe if you go there, he will do the same thing that he did to your comrade Muhammad Lamin Sarr, because he was known to, when the king, when he knew that somebody wanted to mess with his kingdom and stuff like that, he would kill them. So when he wanted Mam Mahram, he wanted to go there and do ta'ziyah, which is how do you call it again, Madam Jale, I forgot the word, the Fubugon Jale Muhammad Lamin Sarr. So he went there. Yeah, condolences, yes, actually. So he went there. When he went there, he didn't just enter the kingdom. He stayed in the outskirts of the kingdom, and he sent somebody to go and ask permission to the king to allow him to go to enter the kingdom. So when he did that, the king was pleased with what he did. So he sent somebody and allowed him to enter the kingdom. And when they entered the kingdom, the king, approached him and asked him to be his ruler, not ruler, but his judge, to judge people and stuff like that. So he told him, because he was old, he didn't want to stay there. He didn't want to stay and engage in those type of activities. So he told him to choose from his sons. So he chose one of his sons, one of Mam Mahram's sons, to stay there, and he gave him a land and stuff like that. And Mam Mahram is the one who built Mbake Jolof, and in there many of his sons, like Muhammad Farimata and all his sons, that's where they stayed. So, and Mam Mahram, although he built Mbake Jolof, he also lived in Mbake Bawol. And in Mbake Bawol, that's where Mamor Anta Sali, that's where Habibullahi was born. Actually, Habibullahi was born in Mbake Jolof, and he's the one who built Mbake Bawol. He's the one who built Mbake Bawol. So you see, always Mbake something. That means they are the Mbake family. But when they live somewhere in that kingdom, they say Mbake something, Mbake Jolof, Mbake Kajor, Mbake Bari, Mbake something. So when Habibullah, he's Mam Bala Aisha, and his name is Habibullah, but in the Wolof tradition, sometimes they mess up with the name, so they call him Balla, but it's like a diminutive of Habibullah, just like Muhammadu, they say Modu. And Mamor Anta Sali was born in Mbake Bawol. And Mbake Bawol is the village that Mambala Aisha built. So when he was born in Mbake Bawol, he was living with in a family of scholars and religious people. So when he reached the age of learning, he traveled to Salum in Nyambur actually in Kajor. He traveled to Nyambur, and in Nyambur he met with many scholars. Among them is I think Muhammad Antandumbe, yes, and he's from the Job family. And also the Job family are a family of scholars, of religious people, and their grandfather, which is Al-Mukhtar Numbe, he's the one who built Koki, which is a very famous Dara, and even Ustaz went there. He's the one who built Koki, and he learned from them, and he also traveled to Salum, and he learned from Muhammad Sal and many other scholars. And when Mamor Anta Sali finished learning and stuff like that, he went back to Mbake Bawol. And there he had his own school and teaching. And he was in Mbake Bawol, but also there was a village in which his in-laws were living, which is Njakan. And in Njakan, the father of Anta Sali and his family, they were living in there. So he used to go there and teach and stuff like that. He used to be there also. And among that time, there was a king who was a Muslim, and he was a king. His name is Maba Jakuba, and he wanted to fight the wall of states who are not believers, and he wanted to establish an Islamic state. So he wanted to fight all the states, all the states that the rulers were not believers, and he wanted to establish an Islamic state. So when he traveled, he was from Salum. He's the king of Salum, and he traveled to Kajor and sorry, he traveled to Kajor and Jolof and Bawal, and he wanted to gather all the Muslims who were there, because he said that if he attacks the wall of states, those people will attack the Muslims. So he has to gather the Muslims and protect them first. So he gathered them all and he brought them to Salum. And from the ones who were gathered was Mamar Antasal and his family. And around that time, the Sheikh was born around that time. He was born in 1853. The Sheikh was born in 1853 in Bakeball. He was born in Bakeball. So some scholars they differ in what year was he born. Some say 1953, some 1954, but
I believe 52.
52. 52. Okay, some say 52, but the majority of the scholars they say 1853. So when he was born, he was, like I said, he was born in Mbake Bawal. And when he reached the age of learning, he before that, Maba was gathering the Muslims and stuff like that, and he was one of them. But he was And when he was gathered, they went to Salum. And from there, that's when he started. When he grew up, that's when he started learning knowledge. And from the people whom he learned from is Muhammad Busso, who is actually his uncle. He learned from him the Quran, and he memorized from him the Quran. Some say from also Tafsir Bakendumbe. From those two, he memorized the Quran from them, and wrote many masahif. And after he memorized the Quran, at that time there was in Salum, right? And Maba, when he gathered all the Muslims and stuff like that in Salum, in that time period, he went and attacked Sin, which is actually a kingdom in Senegal. He attacked Sin, but when he was attacking Sin, he thought that they were just people whom he can attack and destroy just like that. But he didn't know that the people of Sin also were prepared. They were prepared, and they were ready to die, and they were ready to fight. So he didn't have the utmost preparation to go and attack them. So when he attacked them, they fought, and they actually fell, and he died. Maba Jakuba, he died in that war. And when he died, the people who were in Sin, that were gathered in Sin, they all left, and they went back to their homes. And from them, also the family of Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, they also went back to Bawal. But him, the Sheikh, and Muhammad Busso, and the people who were teaching him, they stayed, because he saw that many scholars were in Sin, and Maba, when he was gathering, he gathered also many scholars who were in Sin, who was in Salum. So he wanted to stay there and learn and study. And from in that time period, he studied with many scholars like Samba Tuklarka, who was a scholar and a faqih, and he also knew the tariqah of the Qadiri tariqah, which is a Qadiri tariqah, and he was a really great scholar, and the Sheikh learned from him. He also learned from in that time period he used to come to when they went back, when he finished his studies and stuff like that, when he was in Salum, when he finished his studies, he went back to Kajor, because when Maba gathered the Muslims in Salum, Lajor, you must know that name. You guys know Lajor, right? Lajor, he was expelled from his kingdom, from Kajor. And when he was expelled from Kajor, he didn't have anywhere to go, so he went to Salem with Maba, and he became Muslims. He became a Muslim, and many people became Muslim who were following him. They became Muslim. And when Maba died, he went back to Kajor. He went back to Kajor because Maba conquered Kajor. So he went back to Kajor, and he was given the kingdom of Kajor. So he was the king in Kajor. So when Lajor, who was at that time in Salum, when he was going back to Kajor, he took with him Mamor Antasali, who was the father of Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba. And he took him because he knew that he was a scholar and a very respectable man. So he took him as a judge. And they went back to Kajor. And in Kajor, Mamor Antasali didn't want to live with kings and stuff like that, because he was a scholar, he had many students, and he was also a judge. So he didn't want to have all these activities mixed with kingdom and politics and stuff like that. So every time he accepted the invitation of Lajor to be his judge and stuff like that, because he knew that would be a great way to spread the word of Islam and judge according to the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he accepted that, and he went with them, with Lajor and his people, but he didn't want to live where Lajor lived, just because of what I said earlier. So every time Lajor would live somewhere, he would live somewhere else in a city like close to where Lajor lived, to where if Lajor needed him, he would call him easily. So when Lajor went back to Kajor, he was living in Kër Amadou Yalla. Lajor was living in that city, Kër Amadou Yalla, and close to Kër Amadou Yalla was a city named Patar. And Mamor Antasali was living there in Patar because he didn't want to live in the city where Lajor was living. So when the Sheikh finished his learning and all that, he went back to Kajor, but he was living in Patar. And still, when he went back to Kajor, he didn't finish studying and stuff like that. So he would come sometimes to Al-Qadi Majakhatakala, and he was also a very good scholar, a poet, a grammarian, and he would learn from him. Some say he would not learn, but just every time the Sheikh would write something, he would show him, because he was a poet and he knew Arabic and he knew rhetoric and poetry. So every time the Sheikh would write something, he would come to him and show him what he wrote, so he can correct it. And he used to do that for a long time. And when the Sheikh surpassed him in knowledge and in poetry and stuff like that, every time he would come to him, to Al-Qadi Majakhatakala, to show him his writing, he would tell him, no, give it to me, I will memorize it for you, but don't give it to me for me to correct it, because this is all is all good. Don't give it to me to correct it, give it to me so I can memorize it for you. And also at that time there was a scholar who came from Mauritania, and Mauritania at that time was a very sacred place for the people, for the Senegalese people, because there it was like a capital of knowledge. There were many scholars there, and the families and the people over there were known to be very respectable and religious people. So they used to respect the people who came from Mauritania. So there was a scholar from Mauritania, and his name was Muhammad ibn Muhammad al-Karim al-Yadali, and the sheikh used to go to him, and that scholar used to live in a city named Njany, yeah. And the sheikh used to go to him and learn from him bayan, which is rhetoric, and also mantiq and usul al-fiqh. So that was pretty much how the sheikh learned knowledge, and he went from different places to learn knowledge, and from different people to learn specific subjects. And around that time, Lat Dior actually moved. He was living in what city? Lat Dior. Yes, but in what city in Kajoor? Yeah, I just said it. Kër Amadou Yàlla. Kër Amadou Yàlla. So he moved from Kër Amadou Yàlla and went to Suger, and he went to Suger. And when he moved to Suger, also Mama Anta Say also moved with him to Suger. But like I said, he didn't want to live with Lat Dior in the same city, so he built Mbacke Kajoor. So he's the one who built Mbacke Kajoor. Mama Anta Sali is the one who built Mbacke Kajoor, because he didn't want to live where Lat Dior was living. So when he built Mbacke Kajoor, he was living in Mbacke Kajoor, and he just lived there for 2 years, and he passed away. He passed away in 1880. In 1880, he passed away in 1880. And I forgot to mention that when they were in Salum, his mom passed away when he was in Salum, and his mom is Jaratullah Mam Jara Buso. Mariam. Her name is Mariam, but he was because of the fact that she was so religious, and she used to pray a lot and fast a lot, and she was known to be a very religious woman. So they named him Jaratullah, the neighbor of Allah. The neighbor of Allah. That's what it means. Jaratullah means the neighbor of Allah. And when they were in Salem, I just mentioned it. When they were in Salem, her mom passed away when they were in Salem. And when his father passed away, when they were in Mbacke Kajoor, when his father passed away, the people who took him, when his father passed away, before even his father passed away, when he knew that he was going to die, he called him, and some narration said that he told him that I know I'm going somewhere in which many of the things that will happen there, I'm afraid of it, and the only person who I trust in there is you. Some of the narration, they say that some scholars say that narration is not, it's not known. It's not known. Maybe fabricated or something like that, but it's not known. And when he was passing, Muhammad Lamin Job Dagara said that the Sheikh narrated to some of his disciples that when his father was passing away, he recited the whole Quran. The whole Quran next to him. He recited the whole Quran when his father was passing away. And when his father passed away, and he was a great scholar and everybody knew him, so they took him and they brought him to Dekele, which is Dekele is a city in Kajoor. And even Lat Dior, in the battle in which he died in, the battle is called the Battle of Dekele, which is a famous city in Kajoor. So Mama Anta Sali, he was brought to in Dekele, and the narrations mention that even the Sheikh was among the people who were taking him to Dekele. And Muhammad Lim Dagara mentions that when the people were taking him to Kajoor, he was walking with his own feet, and maybe somebody will come and give him and tell him, don't you want to ride this horse or something like that. He would say, walking with my own feet is better for me. And when they brought him to when they buried him in Dekele, after they buried him, when they brought him to Dekele to pray on him and bury him, they took what's his name again? Saint Tabe Manumbe Marsal. Saint Tabe Manumbe Marsal. Saint Tabe Manumbe Marsal, and he was the one who led the prayer, the janaza prayer on Mamur Antasali. And when they finished, Saint Tabe Manumbe Marsal, he's the one who did the khutbah. He did the khutbah, and he reminded the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then he told them, and then he said, where is Bamba? Where is Bamba? And Bamba is actually a nickname that the people used to call him, because from when he was in Salum, when he was learning in Salum, I mentioned that he was one of the scholars who taught him when he was in Salum was Muhammad Saleh, and Muhammad Saleh, he's from the people of Bamba. He's from the people of Bamba, and it is the tradition of in Senegal that when somebody teach your kid the Quran or knowledge or something like that, you either name him the city that the teacher is from, or you give him a nickname that is related to the teacher. So Muhammad Saleh was from the people of Bamba, and that's why the people used to call him Ahmadu Bamba, because his teacher Muhammad Saleh is from the people of Bamba. So when Saint Tabe Manumbe Marsal, he was doing when he finished with the khutbah, he said, where is Bamba? And he came and he approached, and he told him, approach, come closer. So he came closer, and he told him, come closer again. He told him, this is good, I can hear you when you say something, I can hear you and I can respond to you, so this is good. And he didn't want to come closer because he didn't want to step over the people to go. So he told him, he gave him his what's the word again? Okay, jale. Condolences. And then he told him that, why don't you come with us to Lajor? Why don't you come with us to Lajor? And he was a really great friend of your father, and your father was his judge. So why don't you follow us to Lajor, and we will talk to him, and he will give you the same place that Lajor gave to your father as a judge. And when he said that, Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba has a young man, maybe in his 30s. He told him that, as for what you said about my father and all the condolences that you did, that was a great thing that I appreciate, and may you be rewarded with good. And he told him, as for me going to Lajor or to the kings, I'm not a person that will raise my foot to go to a king and stuff like that, because I don't need whatever they have. And I'm sufficient with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gave me. So when he said that, people were astonished, because he was such a young man, and the people who were scholars, they knew that he had something going on with him, and they knew that he has a young man, and he was he was destined for greatness, and they knew that in him. And as for the people who were just lay people, they were very, very astonished, and they called him Safir, meaning a stupid person. And they said, how can he refuse all of that? How can he be given all that? How can he be given all these favors? How can he be given that and he refused them? He's a stupid person. And he knew that people were saying that about him. That's why he wrote a qasida about that. And he said, he actually wrote two of them. The first one is, and he said that they were telling me I'm stupid just because I turned away from them. And the other one is قالوا ليركن لأبواب الصلاة تهز جوائز تغني كل ما أحيدي. He said, they told me, go to the doors of the kings, and when you go there you will have many presents and you will have many favors. فقلت حسبي ربي واكتفيت به ولست راضيا غير العلم والدين. And he said, I told them, Allah is sufficient to me, and I'm sufficient with Allah, and I do not enjoy, or I do not, and I'm not in favor of anything except knowledge and deen. And he wrote also, and that's a little bit, maybe around 10 verses, and that's what he responded with when they told him that. When they told him go to the kings, and he refused, and he didn't want to do that because he said that going to the kings is like going to somebody, a scholar or a respectable man, going to kings is like it's like flies going around in feces. In feces. So that was his perspective of going to the kings. So that was his response when they told him that. And after his father passed away, he was the one who took in charge the school of his father, because his father was a very known and eminent scholar, so he had a really big school, and he's the one who took in charge his school. And when he took in charge of his school, many people used to come to him and learn from him. And around that time he took upon himself to go and search for haqiqah, which means which something that the Sufi people really appreciate, and I'm gonna get to that later on. So around that time he traveled in many cities. He traveled in many cities looking for scholars, looking for wird. You guys know wird? Looking for scholars from whom he can learn. And he also traveled to the lands of in Mauritania. He traveled also to Mauritania around that time. And all that in some scholars say in 2 months, some say in 3 months. He did that in 3 months. He traveled around Senegal and around Mauritania. And when he came back, he was still teaching. And he felt that he doesn't need anymore to teach people, just to teach them Islamic knowledge, just like that. But he needs to add something to their studies, which is tarbiyah. So some scholars, they mentioned that, and Muhammad Lamin Job, they're gonna mention it. He said that the Prophet himself commanded him to discipline his disciples, and not just teach them, not just teach them knowledge, but also discipline them. So he started that method of teaching, meaning teaching them Islamic knowledge, and at the same time teaching them, disciplining them. So when he started that, and that was in 1883, and the scholars of Muridiya, they say that was the birth of Muridiya, when the Sheikh came back from that traveling that he was doing. And when he came back, he told them that he doesn't want to teach them just Islamic knowledge, just like that, but also he want to add to his program discipline and stuff like that. So they say that was the birth, that time, place, and that time, and that at that point was the birth of Muridiya. And he told them that one day, and Muhammad Lamin Job, they're gonna mention it, he said that one day he came to the disciples and he told them, whomsoever was here to learn just knowledge, let him go and find somebody else to teach him. But whomsoever want to be disciplined and want to walk with us in the path of Ma'rifah, and Haqiqah, then let him stay and let him be according to our command. And he said, because Muhammad Lamin Job Dagana said that when that happened, many people left and only small amount of people remained. So when he was starting that journey, many people follow him in that, and among the first people who followed him in that was Adam Agay and Ibrahim Masilla, and also Singh Abdurrahman Low, and also Singh Abdurrahman Low. At that time, he wasn't there. The sheikh told him. The sheikh actually sent him somewhere to do a task for him, and when he came back and he was told about what the sheikh wanted, he accepted what the sheikh wanted and followed him in that. And there was another guy that I cannot recall his name right now. He was traveling, because sometimes they would go and gather something that they would give to the sheikh, gifts and stuff like that. Sometimes they would write a whole mushaf, the Quran, just to sell it, so they can have something to give to the sheikh. So they would try somebody, I think is Sheikh Abdurrahman Low. I don't recall his name, but he said that he was walking around, and he wanted to sell a book that he had, so he can give the money to the sheikh. And when he was in that path, he saw somebody, and that man came to him and told him, I can find in you the smell of something that I've lost and that I'm looking for. And he told him, what do you mean? He told him that when I left my house, when I left my home, I was looking for a sheikh that can teach me and bring me closer to Allah. So that guy is Mam Sheikh Ibrahim Fall. And he told him that I can smell in you something that I've lost and that I'm looking for. And he told him that I have a sheikh who is teaching me, and he meant by that Sheikh Ahmad Bamba. And so he took Mam Sheikh Ibrahim Fall to the sheikh, and when he came to the sheikh, after a long conversation that they had, he finally accepted the sheikh, and what they say, jabbalu, to the sheikh. And when he accepted the call of the sheikh, some scholars in the Murid Tariqa, they said that was also a turning point in the Muridiyya. That was also a turning point, because at that time the people who were close to the sheikh, they didn't know how to interact with the sheikh, they didn't know how to talk to him and stuff like that. So he is the one who introduced many stuff that they didn't know, and how to interact with the sheikh, and some disciplinary action that they should do when they're around the sheikh. Something like kissing the hand. When you shake his hand, you have to kiss it. When you meet him, you have to take off your hat. When you meet him, you have to take off your sandals and stuff like that. All of that, he introduced that because he thought that a sheikh must be given the utmost respect. You should not talk to your sheikh just like you talk to me or something like that. So he introduced all of that to the Muridiyya. So after that, when the sheikh started his da'wah, I can say, after some of the disciples accepted him, some of his brethren, they also accepted him. Some of his brethren, they also accepted him, like Singh Masamba, Mam Cherno, and all those people also, they accepted his call and his the thing that he wanted to do. This is actually the first part of his life, from his birth all the way to the start of Muridiya. And from the start of Muridiya to the rest of his life is actually, many other steps. So I want to stop here and just go over that part again, because we will have also many other lectures about this. So any question about all of that so far? Because Lat Jor, were scholars who are teaching and who have students, they always want to be, in an environment where they are the only people who are ruling, so to say. So he didn't want to live with Lat Jor, because Lat Jor was a king, and as a king, there are many activities that are going on in your kingdom, because people from lay people will come to you, and business people will come to you, and soldiers, everything. So all those activities were not compatible with him teaching Islam, and try to be a religious guide. And also scholars being with kings, that's something that many scholars they don't approve that. Even the sheikh has a kid when he saw his father being with Lat Jor, he used to write a letter, because he was so he respected his father so much that he didn't want to tell him. So he used to write a letter and leave it in his bed, on his bed. And when Mamour Anta Sali used to come, and he used to find that letter that says, "Oh, my father, leave this king, leave them, don't be with them, because if you be with them in this world, in what they have in this world, you will be also with them in the akhirah. So leave them, don't mess with them." And when Mamour Anta Sali used to read that, he would call the sheikh, because he knew that the sheikh would say something like that. He would call him and tell him, "I know what you're saying is true, but the only reason why I'm being with them is because something that we call mudara, meaning as a scholar, you also have a mission in society, because the only thing you have to do is to make people right and teach them and stuff like that. And that can be easier when you are close to the king, because the king will give you much more opportunities than if you were by yourself. So that's the only reason why he was he was close to the king. And that's the reason why he didn't want to live with him in the same city, because just like I said, teaching is not compatible with politics. So every time Lat Jor would be in one city, he will tell him to build a city for him next to him, like not far from him. When he was in Karamu Yalla, Mamour Anta Sali was in Patar. And when Lat Jor moved to Suker, he built Mbacke Kadior and he stayed there. It's not haram. When you speak about fiqh, it's not haram. But the sheikh at that time, he was a young man. He was around his 30s, right? He was around his 30s, and his father, like I said, was a very known scholar. He was a very known religious man, and he had actually the one who led the prayer, Saint he was a comrade of Mamour Anta Sali. I mean, they went to the same dara. They went to the same dara. So it's like me, for example, if I pass away, Sheikh Abdul would do my janaza, not my son, because we are peers. So the fact that Sayyid led his prayer, because he was his peer, he was his peer. And at that time, in our tradition, you don't see people who are older than you and who have that status. They were knowledgeable people, and the sheikh, although he was a knowledgeable person, but he was young, so he cannot just go and among all those great scholars and elderly people, he cannot go and lead the prayer among them, because that's not even our tradition in Senegal. How did Arabic come to Senegal? Actually, Islam itself, the scholars mentioned that around 158, some say 154, but 158 Islam existed or entered Senegal around that time. And even though Islam entered Senegal around that time, but they were not an Islamic state. Like I said, all the states that were in Senegal at that time, like Jolof, Baol, Sine, Saloum, and all those states were, Ceddo, yeah, non-believers. They were not believers. They were Ceddo. And the Muslims the people who became Muslim, the only way they could learn Islamic knowledge is going to Mauritania. So basically, many of the scholars, or if not all the scholars who learned who was in Senegal, they learned knowledge from Mauritania. So you can say basically that Arabic came from Mauritania, because Islam came through Mauritania from the Murabitun. Those are the people the merchants who used to come from Mauritania and interact with the people in Senegal, and that's how Islam itself entered Senegal. And when we say Islam entered that way, basically Arabic also entered that way in all the Islamic knowledge.
Thank you for following Echo from Touba. Inshallah, that was Sheikh Bashir Fall. Interesting lecture, mashallah. May Allah help him, inshallah, and all the members of the Center, Nailul Miram Center over in New York City. Thank you for following again, and happy Magal, happy Safar to everyone. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Jërëjëf Serigne Touba. Jaraw lakke Mam Cheikh Ibrahima Fall. Thank you so much.